Locked On Giants Live is back. Salary cap, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and much more with Traina, Tainah, and Dog coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Giants Live. You got Patricia Traina, your host, Traina, Tainah, and Dog. We are back. We got the gang back together. Right. And it's been so long. I missed you guys.
Yeah. Funny, it went by fast. It seemed like it went by fast. You know what's great, though, chat? Eagles ain't Super Bowl champions. He's giving me like 7 months. I can tell you that.
I thought of you, Dog, when the Eagles lost. I sat there and I said to my husband, boy, Dog must be just absolutely
happy.
Jumping with joy.
It was great. It was good. That was a good Super Bowl. I mean, honestly, obviously, I was very happy that they lost, but that was a really good Super Bowl. I mean, regardless, that was one of the better Super Bowls
I've seen
in a long
really
time.
Good
It was a very good game. And I'll be honest, I was actually surprised the Eagles lost. I really did think they were going to win. I thought their defense would be a little bit better, but the pre-snap motion, the drag routes were killing. They never figured that out. So it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that's in the books. We're now in the off season. There's plenty of stuff to talk about. On today's show, we'll talk about salary cap questions. I know I've been promising you guys that. I did a show on salary cap last week, but we'll take questions now. We'll talk about Daniel Jones's contract, free agency. The combine is next week. My gosh, we got so much to talk about. I hope we can squeeze this all in the 2 hours.
I think we can do it. We got next. We'll talk about it next week. We'll talk about the combine. We'll talk about
do that. We could, if whatever we don't cover this week, we can cover next week, right?
Exactly.
The combine.
I'm
out of it, man.
I think it's March 2nd.
I was looking forward to spring training here. I know the Yankees got a game on Saturday, and I didn't even realize that the combine was coming up. That
you know why, Bad Dog?
March Madness is coming up,
Bad Dog? Because we normally get an off-season mode in November.
This is good point.
True.
Good point. Halloween, we're already looking at the combine, and this year not so much.
Well, it's interesting. We'll talk about the combine a little bit, but this year it's a little bit different vibe for I think a lot of us because number one, the Giants are not drafting high as they have been doing the last several years. So it's almost like, I hate to say it, but it's almost like the combine sort of takes a back seat to what's going on in free agency because some big decisions coming up. Some suspense here with Daniel Jones. What's going to happen with him? How's this going to trickle down and affect Saquon Barkley and Julian Love and, what Joe Schoen's able to do. So we will talk about all that. We'll take questions as we always do. I'll try to answer them with regards to the cap. I saw Papa Guzzo says, teach me the cap. I'm like, Papa Guzzo, you got like, 6 months. I can teach you the cap in 6 months, but we'll try and answer all the questions. So guys, let's start off with the Daniel Jones situation. He changes agents. I want to say a couple days before the franchise transition tag window opens. Nobody saw that coming. I know I sure as heck didn't. And I thought, okay, he's with CAA. CAA has represented a lot of, quarterbacks. And even though Athletes First has rep some high paying quarterback, the combination of agents that Jones has now, I don't know that I'm trying to think if they've ever done a big contract for a quarterback. I don't think they have.
The agency has, but I don't think the individual agent.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So just what did you guys make of the decision to switch? I mean, we were talking about it a little bit off the air about how, Athletes First reps David Sills and Sterling Shepard, who happen to be two of Jones's best buddies. But what did you make of this whole thing?
Listen, at the end of the day, it's one of two things. Either Daniel Jones felt like, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure there's other variables, but I think like most people, when they saw it come out, the thought process was it's one of two things. It's either A, Daniel Jones felt like that agency was not going to be able to get him as much money as he deserved, or B, it's possible that Daniel Jones felt like that agency wasn't doing a good job in terms of negotiating with the New York Giants, and he wanted to get a deal done, and he felt like this new agency would be able to give him a better opportunity at doing that. That's the way I think most people viewed it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Joe Shane mentioned it, and Daniel Jones, it is a business. I mean, I know as a fan of your team, you fall in love with the players on the team. A lot of people, Daniel Jones has been one of the more polarizing figures on the Giants. Some guys absolutely love the guy. Some people absolutely hate the guy, and they want to move on from him no matter what. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a business. And to me, I just looked at it like Daniel Jones probably figures this agency will give him the best, contract, or negotiate the best contract. So whether that's with the Giants or another team, he's probably doing what's best for him. I don't blame him. I mean, again, I look at it this way. I don't care what line of work you're in. You want to get paid the most money you can at the job you do. So if Daniel Jones feels that he can get more at this agency, more power to him.
Yeah, what I found interesting about the whole scenario is back during the bye week, the Giants didn't have conversations with Jones's agent. And to my knowledge, I don't think they had conversations when the playoffs were going on and into the Super Bowl and the weeks after that. So maybe, and I'm just speculating here, I'm just spitballing, is it possible that Daniel might have been frustrated by the fact that talks got started so late? That there was nothing. I mean, I don't know if the Giants made any kind of overture towards him, but I do know. I remember specifically because I might have been the one who asked the question: of Daniel Jones during the bye week? Did your reps have talks with the Giants over the bye week? And he said, to my knowledge, they did not. So I found that kind of curious because Julian Love's reps had conversations, Saquon's reps had conversations, but not Daniel, and yet Daniel is the priority. I found that kind of weird. And then possible. At the NFL honors, remember, Diana Rossini of ESPN caught Brian Daboll on the NFL honors red carpet, and he said that they had begun talking to, they opened up conversations with Daniel's reps. And I thought to myself, gosh, that's kind of late. Yeah. I thought that was kind of late, but, I don't know.
That might have something to do with it. It's all speculation, but that might have something to do with it. That might have been like his agency's strategy during the year. They might have said to Daniel, no, we don't want to give them any leverage during the year. We're not going to talk to them. You're going to keep playing. You're going to keep upping your value. And maybe the way that they continued to remain silent with the New York Giants started to make Daniel Jones upset. And that may have had something to do with it because he probably wants to stay here. Brian Daboll, he wants familiarity. He probably wants to get a deal done where he feels like he's fairly compensated, but it's entirely possible that he was not happy with the job that he felt that agency was doing. He thought that this agency would get better along with the New York Giants.
Could very well be. I mean, like I said, Shepard, Sills, his two buddies, rep by Athletes First. So maybe, they said, hey, listen, our guys are aggressive. They're going to, get something done. They're not going to sit on their hands. I don't know. I mean, it's possible. But, let's talk about these reports of Daniel wanting $45 million. And I think I know where this originated. Pro Football Talk did an article, and it was more of a speculative article than anything. At no point did Mike Florio or whoever it was that wrote it say that that's what Jones was looking to earn. What he did was he outlined the potential scenario. So assuming Jones gets the tag this year, that's $32.4 million, okay? And Florio, or again, whoever wrote the article, is speculating that, once he gets tagged, that's it. He's playing on the tag, which is not necessarily the case. But taking the article a step forward, and this is on profootballtalk.com, by the way, if anybody wants to look it up. Then they said, well, what if the Giants tag Jones again next year? It's going to cost them, I forget what the amount was.
38. It's 38.
38. All right, 38. And then after that, you can only tag a guy twice. After that, you have to raise his base salary by 20%. So when the math was all done, it came out to $45 million APY. And I think that's where that number came from. That's my guess.
That to me is why 35 is his floor. I think it's fair. I think it's fair to anticipate next year's tag with this year's tag if you're Daniel Jones's agent. But the third one, the 20% raise, you're almost never going to see a team tag a quarterback 3 times in a row.
No. But if
I'm Daniel Jones's agent, I do go to the Giants and I say, listen, he get 32.4 if he just sits out and makes you guys tag him. So he's not signing under that on a per year average. And if he forces you to tag him next year and you don't want to commit long term, he's getting 38. So that's $35 million a year on average. So if that's my floor, if I'm Daniel Jones's agent, if it's a multi-year contract, I say, listen, if you tag him 2 years in a row, he's getting $35 million a year, fully guaranteed, and you can't move the money around. So I'm starting at 35. That's where it starts for me if I'm his agent.
Right. And the other thing is, if he does get the tag, that money automatically comes out of the Giants' salary cap space. Not to mention that if they do work out a long-term deal, Daniel's got to be guaranteed $35 million in cash. All right. However they do it, with a signing bonus, roster bonus, workout bonus, base salary, any incentives, he's got to be guaranteed at least $35 million in cash. So I'm sorry, 32 million. That's the tag money. So yes, the Giants can do things to add to their salary cap space if they lose that, but that's a big chunk of change coming out. They're going to do something with Galladay's contract, whether they make him a pre-June or a post-June could depend on, what happens with Daniel Jones. And then, Leonard Williams' number is going to probably come down. I think they're going to extend him. And I know they'd also like to extend Dexter. But here's the thing, are they going to have enough money at the end of the day to get Saquon back, to get Julian Love back, and to upgrade the roster where they need to? I don't think it happens if they have to tag Jones.
Yeah, there's no maneuverability with the money. And I mean, what do they have? 50 to 55 million or something like that?
I think I want to say it's 45, isn't it?
But it's going to be more because you're going to cut
It'll be
Galladay
more, right?
But
regardless,
you can take 32 out of that. It shrinks up quick. That money shrinks up quick. So it's going to be hard to keep all those guys. But that's why we have Joe Shane, right? That's why we have Brandon Brown. It's these guys' job, figure it out. Howie Roseman figures it out every year. I don't know how the hell he does it, but he does it every year. So that's their job. That's what good GMs do. They find a way.
And he'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Shane will figure it out. I mean, it's going to be tricky, but let me ask you this. How would you guys feel if they do have to tag Jones and they potentially lose Barkley and Julian Love? How upset would you be?
I'll start. One, I don't want Daniel Jones to play on the tag this year. I think that's a last resort. But if he is not signed by March 7th, they're going to tag him because they're not going to risk. And I think they'll try to work out a deal, hopefully before the start of free agency. And even if they are forced to tag him, I fully expect them to get a multi-year extension done before. I think the deadline's in July. I think they'll get a multi-year.
July 15th, I think it is.
July 15th. They'll have a multi-year extension done before then. I fully believe that. And I think they're gonna have a multi-year extension done before then. But in your scenario, if they're forced to tag Daniel Jones, one, I love, no pun intended, I almost love Julian Love. I think he's a really good player. And seems like a great locker room guy. A captain. I don't want them bringing Julian Love back. Not for what I think he's going to cost.
Yeah.
And for what I think, quite frankly, he deserves. I think there's teams out there that are going to be willing to give him $10, $11 million. I mean, you got McKinney. You're going to have to sign him. You drafted Dane Belton, who I think was drafted to be his eventual replacement.
Pinnock. You got Pinnock.
I'll take the comp pick, Julian.
Yeah.
Thank you for your services.
Yeah.
I'll take the 5th round comp pick. Best of luck with the Chicago Bears, the Atlanta Falcons, wherever you go with a team that has a lot of cap space. Barkley, my favorite player in the team. Love him. If I'm not tagging him, which it does not look like the New York Giants are going to do, and in your scenario, we can't tag him because we're tagging Jones, I'm letting him go because I'm not paying him $15 million a year.
Yeah.
And if he hits the open market, a team is going to pay him $15 million a year.
The Bears, sure. Let him go to the Bears.
Yeah, so I hate to say it. And then you try to build up the rest of the team with the money that's provided to you, and I have full faith that Joe Shane will be able to do that. But yeah, right now, if you ask me to predict, Chris, what's going to happen, even if we don't tag Jones, I was always under the impression, Patty, that they were going to get an extension done with Jones, and then they were going to tag Barkley.
Me too.
But now you're hearing reports, and we'll see how accurate it is, that they're not going to tag Barkley. Even if they sign Jones to the extension, I'm starting to hear rumblings that they're not going to tag Barkley. So if they're not going to tag Barkley, I don't think he's coming back. I think it's going to be Daniel Jones is coming back. I think both those guys are going to be gone.
Barkley would be in line for I think the tag for a running back is $10 million, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Doug, what's your take?
I mentioned this off stream. And like we were talking about, like you said, like Chris said, in your scenario, you tag Jones. I can't pay Barkley all that money. I can't give all that money to a running back because in this day and age, Barkley's awesome. He's one of my favorite players in the Giants. I love Saquon. He's an exciting player. He's certainly the best player on offense. I don't think there's any question about that. You can make the argument him or Jones, but I think most people take Barkley's the most explosive player on the offense. However, you look at the teams that were in the Super Bowl. Neither one of them have a superstar running back, right? You need a good offensive line, and you can have a good running game without a superstar running back. So instead of giving Barkley $15 million a year, which, like Chris said, if he hits the open market, somebody's probably going to give him 14 or 15 million. Build the offensive lineup and just get a good running game. Get some serviceable running backs and get a number one receiver in here. And just kind of balance out your team and instead of being so heavy, so reliant on a running back, especially a guy that has been injury prone a lot of his career, right? He had one good year. I'm always skeptical of giving a guy a ton of money on his free agent year after he has a talent and it's not, no fault of his own. He's had some bad luck, but it's hard for me in this scenario to say, yeah, let's give Saquon Barkley all this money and tag Daniel Jones because you have no money. You have no money left because you can't move the $32 million around. Yeah. You're giving your running back $15 million. You got no money. You got to still sign your draft class.
You only need about $3 million though for the draft class.
What's that?
$3 million in new money.
Right, but still. We're not as high as we normally do, so we don't have to pay as much this time around.
Right.
But
I get your point, though.
For me, I'd rather take the money you give Barkley, and just like I said, if you're going to have Jones here, you want to build in front of him, not behind him. Put that money in the line.
Absolutely.
We talked about this when Sam Darnold was a Jet. Chris and I used to talk about this. You went out and bought a Maserati, but you didn't get the insurance. So if you crash that car, what the hell was the point, right? Build the line, get some insurance for your quarterback. I think the offensive line is more important to Daniel Jones than Saquon.
And get him a wide receiver too.
Right. So that's just kind of my take. I think building in front of Jones is better than building behind him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And, I don't want to see Saquon leave. I think he's been a great player, good locker room presence, great in the community. But, yeah, I can't see giving him 15. I mean, that's Ezekiel Elliott money, and Zeke's probably going to get cut or at least get that contract redone.
Yep.
So
listen, I think Barkley is worth that to someone, but
right.
It's that, but for where the Giants currently are, like the Chicago Bears, I think he's going to be a Bear when push comes to shove because it just makes so much sense. Yes, they have the most cap space at over 90 million, but the other thing. They have a quarterback that's entering year 3, right, with Justin Fields. They have a quarterback that they need to start to see a lot more progression out of, that they're desperate to get him help. Suddenly, you got Saquon Barkley with Justin Fields' ability to use his legs in the backfield. You got $95 million in space.
And you're going to get some draft picks, Chris, because they're probably going to trade out of the number 1 spot.
Very possible. I think that's where he's headed, if I had to guess. But as much as I love Saquon Barkley, I'm definitely leaning at this point that he won't be back. I'm not saying for sure because maybe his market won't be as high as I think. Maybe he'll go out there and he'll only get offered $12.5, $13 million, and then he stays with the Giants. But if a team's willing to give him 15, I don't think he's coming back.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think right now, I'm not very confident that Barkley's back.
Yeah.
Now if they get a deal done with Jones, that changes everything. They can use the tag if they need to.
Yeah.
10 million would not hurt them. I mean, it would be a little much. It would not hurt them though if
But then, Patty, does Saquon even want to play on the tag?
He's going to have no choice, Chris. I mean, he might sit out the spring or something like that.
Yeah.
But remember, this is a guy who, when he was injured, didn't he say, "Oh my God, I missed playing. I missed being with my brothers. It was terrible not playing."
Yeah.
Now you're going to voluntarily sit out because you're on the tag.
I mean, I think that's
come on.
For me, that's the way to go. Get Jones done. Get him his $36 million a year, $37 million a year contract. Lock it up. Hopefully, it's 5 years so you could space out the money. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the stream. To me, that's more ideal for the Giants than Jones if it's a 5-year deal because you can kind of space out the money. It gives you freedom throughout the contract. It also gives Jones probably 3 years worth of security.
You put an
But
option year in there too, or
Yeah.
not an option year. I keep
Avoid
saying
year.
option year, option bonus.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and I
Um,
outlined that. I think I talked about that on the show, the salary cap show I did last week. If you guys haven't checked it out, I'm talking to the group here. Check it out. I went over some different types of bonuses and stuff. And if you saw that show and you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them as you know when we get to the Q&A part. But yeah, this is a very interesting development. I don't think any of us saw it coming, but the ramifications, and already people are like on my timeline saying Daniel Jones is a greedy, you know what? He's going to cost his team its best players, yada, yada, yada. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I think they can recover if they lose Julian Love because they have
they
Pinnock
definitely
and
recover, yeah.
Belton. You know, if they lose Saquon, yeah, that would stink, but you can. There are plenty good running backs in this draft class, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, on the show tomorrow, I pre-taped it today. I had Damian Parson, who was one of the new Locked On NFL draft hosts. And my gosh, he gave a lot of good names that we should be keeping an eye on. So make sure you check that show out. Drops at midnight tonight. But he said, geez, you'll have no problem. You know, yeah, Saquon's got a special skill set, but you'll have for what the Giants do with their running game, have no problem replacing that.
Right.
So
I didn't even mention Julian Love because honestly, again, $10, $11 million, like Chris said, just comp pick. I don't think Julian Love's he's a good player, but is he that much of an impact player where you want to give him?
Mm-mm.
Barkley's an impact player.
Yes.
Love is a nice player. I don't know how much of an impact player he is. So I didn't even mention him. I think Barkley's is more important to the team. But again, you can't go out and spend $25 million on a running back and a safety when you're trying to sign your quarterback and you still have holes in your interior offensive line and in
your cornerback,
your
right?
Linebacker and cornerback,
and
wide receiver,
defensive
obviously.
line.
So we still have a lot of holes to fill. So
yeah, and you know this whole notion. I think I saw somebody propose that the Giants should just sign Daniel to the franchise tag and forget about it, or do a tag and trade. What is the point of a tag and trade? You're not going to get 2 first-round picks for Daniel Jones. No. I'm sorry. I like him. I don't think he's worth 2 first-round picks.
I mean, most quarterbacks that make what Daniel Jones is about to make are not worth 2 first-round picks because of the salary alone.
Will be worth that,
right? Once they're up the rookie deal, it's very hard to get 2 first-round. Yes, the premium quarterbacks, yes, but not the guys that are just outside of that. No, you're not getting
right.
Right now, what teams are going to sit there and go, yeah, I'll give you 2 first-round picks for Daniel Jones because if you need a quarterback, it's not like you're a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl. Who's going to do that? The Jets? You know, we just need a quarterback. Or Washington? Like, we're a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl. They're probably not. So unless you have a team that's like, we're a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl, and we know Daniel Jones can win us a Super Bowl, we're going to give it 2 first-round picks. Nobody's going to do that. Give up 2 first-round picks for a guy that you're about to pay $38 million a year to. It's not going to happen.
By the way, did you see Tiki Barber's suggestion that the Jets might benefit by having Daniel Jones, by going after Daniel Jones?
I'm going to tell you right now, and Joe Shane knows it. I've said it for months. If we let him hit the open market, the Jets would show interest. So would Washington.
I know they would, sure.
But he's
Carolina might too.
But he's not going to hit the open market. So,
nope.
But if he did,
the Giants will tag him and figure something out. I will be utterly shocked if Jones hits the open market. I'll be stunned.
It's not happening.
I don't think it's.
I don't see it happening. Not at all. Barkley, yes, I think that's where it's headed. And there's other free agents that we haven't even talked about, but those guys I think are going to come in on the lower end of the scale. But I'm just curious to see because how that money is going to shift. And yes, there's going to be money they get from Galladay, from Leonard Williams, and if they can get Dexter extended, people have also said to me, well, what about extending Andrew Thomas and Xavier McKinney? Those deals aren't going to get done right now. McKinney is still rehabbing that hand. So I think that if I'm the Giants, I wait to see how his rehab goes this offseason. And as far as Andrew Thomas goes, he's entering year 4. You can pick up the option year, which I fully expect him to do. And then if you need to, you could just keep tagging him. Andrew Thomas
They're
isn't
gonna
going
they're
anywhere.
gonna extend Thomas probably after next year, I think. But
I
think,
could see that. I could
yeah,
see
but I think
that, but
there's
not
this is
this year.
Dexter's year. This is Dexter's year.
This is
It-
Dexter now, and
Yeah.
that's where the Galladay decision is interesting, because if you're Joe Shane, you will save more money if you dump Galladay after June 1st. I think the amount saved goes up to 13 or 14 million.
I think
versus
it's
6 million.
13.5 actually.
Yeah, versus 6.
Yeah.
So if you want to, excuse me, extend anybody in season, you want to have more money to do that. So it
Yeah.
makes sense to wait on Galladay. But at the same time, if you need that money, if you need that 6 million, because okay, you need every penny you can get because of what you want to do in free agency. And by the way, I don't think Joe Shane's going to go crazy in free agency. I really
No.
don't think he's going to make
definitely
splashes.
not.
No, he's thinking
Yeah.
long term. He's thinking long term. He's thinking about accruing a couple of comp picks from some of these guys he may lose. He's going to keep his in-house guys, and he'll make some smart, cost-effective signings. He'll get starters. He'll get like a second-tier linebacker. He'll get like a second-tier wide receiver. But I mean, if I think, and maybe I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if there's going to be like one big move, I think it's trading for a wide receiver. I don't know if it will come to fruition.
Well,
But I could definitely see it happening.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. Would you go for DeAndre Hopkins, give up a third and a conditional fifth since you got 2 picks in those rounds?
If it doesn't include me having to extend him, which supposedly he wants,
well, he won't get it.
I would because he's only when you look at what they're responsible for on the contract, I think it's about $18 million a year on average what we'd have to pay for the 2 years.
It's the same as paying Galladay pretty much.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would be willing to trade for DeAndre Hopkins if it didn't include like a long extension on top of the trade.
Yeah, especially
so
for
you'd be okay with a third and a fifth.
Yeah, I'd give up a third and a fifth.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, he's had some injury issues. I know that. He got dinged, I think, for a suspension. DeAndre Hopkins, I don't think he's in a position right now to demand any kind of extension. Now, you can say, well, his production wasn't very good with the Cardinals. But then again, was the quarterback that great?
Out of the year too, so that didn't help his production either.
Yeah. I mean, was the quarterback play that good in Arizona? I mean, that had something to do with it too, I would think. So
I mean, they could always trade for DeAndre Hopkins and still take a wide receiver, the first pick.
right.
I mean,
Well, I think they're going to. I think I could see them acquiring a veteran and drafting. Now, it's funny. I did a 3-round mock draft on Giants country, and I had them taking a receiver in the first round. In retrospect, I should have gone cornerback. And I think on my next mock,
I had them going cornerback in my first mock draft.
I'm going to do the cornerback.
Who do you think I had them taking?
Cornerback?
Yeah, I had a corner.
Kelly?
Yeah, Ringo.
No.
Yeah, Ringo. I had him taking Ringo
Okay.
out of Georgia. He's a good fit.
Really, Ringo.
He's a man press cover corner. He fits the scheme. But I really like the guy at Penn State. But I just don't think he's going to be there. He's another really good fit for our deep. But I think we're going corner. When you look at the draft, when you look at the strength of that position, where we're picking the value, I think we're going corner.
It'll be best player available.
I think so too. And especially, after listening to what Damian had to say, again, that show's coming out at midnight, just after midnight tonight. Really, really good. I mean, a lot of good names. So if you want to get an idea of who to keep an eye on in the combine and some potential fits, Damian did a great job with all this content. And next week, just spoiler alert, I'm supposed to have Rick Ciritella on. I'm going to have Damian's co-host on, whose name escapes me right now, but I've got a lot of draft people that I'm looking to have on next week as the combine unfolds. So a lot of information coming down. Papa Guzzo just said he wants to center from Minnesota, as do I. But
everybody does.
It's interesting though, because Damian said that there's the Wisconsin offensive lineman who played center, or did he play guard? It was a center, and then he also mentioned the guy from Alabama who had to play guard because they had injuries or something like that. So there's some other candidates besides John Michael Schmitz who I would love to see on the Giants. I mean, he's as complete a center as need be. But interesting question here now. In the meantime, do you bring back Feliciano or do you bring back Gates? I have a feeling it's going to be Feliciano.
Yeah, you've said that now for like 2 months. I would rather bring back Gates,
I
but
would too.
yeah, but Feliciano, obviously, if they go that route, I would think the sense would be from Buffalo, Bobby Johnson. They obviously he's familiar with the coaching staff, right? So
Mhm.
maybe that's what they'll do. I hope he doesn't start next year if they bring him back, or maybe he's like a part-time starter before they replace him with a young player. But we'll see. I don't think both are coming back. I'll tell you that.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
And I don't think Gates is. I'd love to have him back. Just reading the tea leaves, and I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, if it does, hell, I'll jump for joy. You know how I feel about Gates, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. And it's going to break my heart. But look, if he wants to start someplace and he wants to be paid like a starter, I don't think he's going to have that here. I really don't, because ultimately, that interior, that offensive line, all right, Glowinski's going to be back because he still has guaranteed money. So he's going to be back for at least one more year. Left guard, what do? You do Bredesen or do you do Azudu? Because remember, they drafted Azudu with the idea of plugging him in at guard, and he had that injury. So do they?
I think it depends. I think it depends on training camp, right? But I think that's one of the bigger battles going into camp. I think they want it to be Azudu.
Right. He's obviously a future. So
yeah.
But yeah, that'll be one of the training camp battles. I think that position is going to be up for grabs. I don't know. I think the Giants, man, that first round pick, that could be anything. And best player available.
Cornerback.
That could be. It could be corner. Could be wide receiver. It could be
linebacker.
Center. It could be a linebacker.
I doubt it's a linebacker.
Well, they haven't done that since Carl Banks in '84.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be
not. But yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've seen mock drafts. I love Jordan Addison. I don't think he'd ever fall to 25, but I've seen mocks having Jordan Addison going to the Giants. So I don't know. Again, normally we're really stoked about the draft because it's like you're going to get one of the best players in the draft because we were drafting top 5, top 6 every year. This year, drafting 25, it's like you just take the best guy available, the best positional value, because we need so many positions.
Yeah.
And, it'll be interesting to see what direction we go. And of course, free agency has a lot to do with where they're going in the draft too. So if they go out and get DeAndre Hopkins for, maybe they don't, maybe like, well, we don't need that because we got Wan'Dale Robinson coming back. We have Isaiah Hodgins. We signed him. We're going to, and we just got DeAndre Hopkins. We can let that wide receiver roll till later on in the draft. And we're going to take a position that, a center or a corner. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. No matter where we're drafting, it's always an interesting offseason because it's Christmas. It's NFL.
Yeah, but it's interesting because this year, like I said, because they're drafting so low and because of all the intrigue with the free agency contracts, it's almost like the draft is an afterthought right now.
It is, which it hasn't been in years.
That's going to be I'm telling you, next week, that is going to be everybody's focus who's going to the combine is to try and sniff out the agents and find out what the heck's going on. Mm-hmm. Now, next week, for those who missed it, Joe Shane is the only one who's speaking next week. He's only doing one podium session. Brian Dable is not speaking next week.
I saw you post that on Twitter.
Yeah, he's not speaking. And usually they do something afterwards. So I don't know that they're going to do anything after that. Like they'll go in the back and they'll have all the beat writers go in the back and they'll talk separately. But I don't think they're going to do that this year. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's the plan. So that agent meeting, because all the agents will be in town for their seminar that they have to take, and they usually have it on the lower level of the Indiana Convention Center. I guarantee you that hallway is going to be crawling with reporters, guaranteed.
You think we're going to get that deal done before the combine? Because if I'm Joe Daniels? Shane, I want to. If I'm Joe Shane, because March 2nd and March 5th, you want to be focused on the draft. March 7th is the tag deadline.
Yeah, Chris, I'll be honest with you. I would be surprised.
You think it's going to drag?
Basically, you're starting from scratch.
Yeah. So do you think that do you think he's initially tagged at this point?
I do, and I'll explain why. Even though you might have a number in mind, let's say 5 years, 160 million. Let's use those as starter points. How you break up that money, what percentage is guaranteed? How what's your signing bonus, your roster bonus? It's the structure of the contract that takes the most time to hammer out. You can agree to the numbers like that, but the structure is what takes a lot of time. That's why, I sit and I work on structures for contracts all the time, and they take me forever because I know what the math, I know how many years, I know what the dollar value is I need to shoot for. What I don't know is how to break it up as best, so that the player benefits. And a lot of times when I've submitted my work, like to a Joel Corey or to a Jason Fitzgerald to look at and say, hey, do I have this broken down right? They'll say, no, you were too short on the base salary, or you should have, moved this here. So there's little intricacies that have to be moved around, and it's like a puzzle. It's a very intricate puzzle. And and I'm telling you, I joke about this all the time on my Instagram account, my Twitter account. Doing the cap work gives me a headache at the end of the day. I am literally exhausted. I mean, my head is just like, so, but I do it because obviously you have to understand it. You have to have an idea because it's part of the roster building season. So,
yeah, for sure.
So
and that's
anyway,
gonna be a big puzzle for Daniel Jones because it's gonna be a big contract.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yep. Folks, if you have questions about the cap, about anything, pop them in the chat box, and we'll talk about it. One of the things I spoke about in the cap show I did last week is an option bonus for Daniel Jones. And I think I saw a question, and I apologize. I didn't catch what asked it, but they said, well, can the Giants give Daniel Jones a 5-year deal and get out of it after 2? After 3, I think makes more sense because if you're doing guaranteed money, you're going to want to make sure you have at least 3 years before you get out of it. It's for cap purposes. You're not going to want to guarantee everything up front and front load the contract. So the option bonus is a little different because it's like a signing bonus, except it doesn't kick in until the actual year it's inserted. So in the model that I presented in the show last week, I think I said 4th year option bonus, which means if the Giants pick that up, then Daniel Jones, let's say that option bonus is for $2 million. That means $1 million extra against year number 4 of the contract, $1 million extra against year number 5. All right. Now, if you want to make it a 2-way option where the player can opt out, and this is why I think this is a good idea for Daniel, because Daniel's 25 years old right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you give him a 5-year deal to spread out the signing bonus, but you say to him, Daniel, you're going to be able to get out of this contract after 3. When you are still in your prime, all right?
Yep.
So he would be about 28, 29 years old.
Yep.
You can now, and then the cap will go up. If you continue to ascend, you can reset your market price.
Yeah, well, think about it like this.
Think
about it like we're projecting this market to be, we'll say 36. I think that's about a fair number. And
which is why you take less if you're Daniel, if you're smart.
And the salary cap right now is 225.
Right.
So just based off of this year's salary cap, his average per year salary, if he gets 36, is about 15% of the salary cap. Obviously, it's not going to go against the cap 15%. We know that, right? But just based off of, the basic numbers of the contract. So if you're Daniel Jones' agent, you're talking to the Giants and they say you could get out of that after 3 years, salary cap's going to be like $310 million in 3 years. $310 million.
308. 308 is the projection.
Oh, yeah. So we'll say 310 to make it easy.
Yeah.
And 15% of that is
how much? $45 million or whatever.
It's ridiculous. So if you're
there's your $45 million right there.
Yeah, there's your 40. You could be the same level of quarterback you are right now, Daniel. You just need to be okay, pretty good, not incredible,
right?
And you can make $45 million a year in 3 years on that market.
Right.
So if you
take less and you build a team and you do win a Super Bowl, you're probably going to get $50 million a year.
Yes,
60,
exactly. Thank 60. You. That's what Daniel needs to understand, and hopefully that's what Look, I mean, at the end of the day, they have to bring Daniel in and sit him across from Joe Shane, and Shane has to explain to him, look, Daniel, try this approach. This is what we're trying to do. We're not trying to screw you out of money. We're trying to build this team up so we can win, so that you can be successful, so that in 3 years you can come back to us and we can go over, go through this.
Write your own ticket. You can write your own ticket if you're Daniel Jones in 3 years.
Exactly.
To win. So you got, that would say, and again, I think something like that would tell Joe Shane what Daniel Jones thinks of himself. Because if Daniel Jones goes, okay, I'm in, that shows to me, I would say to me as a GM, that kid's got confidence that he can do this. Whereas if he's like, no, I want the bag right now. To me, I'm like, well, does he really believe that he's going to be better in 3 years?
Well, here's the other thing, Dog. if you're Daniel Jones and you've had the injury history that you have, is there any guarantee he's going to make it through another year next year without an injury?
That's a good point too. The one thing I could say about Joe, well,
Hence why I would
the
put
neck
him
thing
at
was
170.
pretty serious, I guess. I mean, you don't mess around with the neck, but he hasn't, knock on wood, he hasn't had like a Barkley thing where he's torn an ACL or he's torn a muscle or, like, I mean, I don't know how long Brock Purdy's been out, but he had the torn, whatever that is in his elbow. I don't know if it was UCL or whatever. Like he needs Tommy John.
Yeah.
It's not called Tommy John surgery, whatever it's called, because whatever, he
Right.
didn't have a torn tendon or something like that.
Right.
He's had some high ankle sprain, groin strain, and then he had the neck thing. But no, I mean, that's a good point too, but
and that's why if I'm the Giants, one of the incentives I'm putting in his contract is a per game roster bonus. So if you miss time, Daniel, I'm getting a cap credit at the end of the year for every game that you miss, because the history would suggest that he's going to miss time due to injury. Is last year an outlier? Possibly. Is it the start of a new trend? It could be, but I'm protecting myself if I'm the Giants. And I say, okay, you know what? You always want to play if you're hurt. I'm putting this clause in there and you can collect. And anything that Jones doesn't reach as far as incentives is a cap credit based on how it's structured. If it's a not likely to be earned or a likely to be earned, which, by the way, I see a question about that. But first, I want to answer Scott Young's question here. Do you think Daniel is watching to see what happens with Carr's contract? No, I don't think
they're
so.
all looking at the contracts.
I don't think so. I think maybe Lamar Jackson or something like that. But Carr, at this point, I'm not so sure that that's a factor. I really don't.
I don't think anybody's a factor because I think he's coming back with the Giants.
Right.
But here's what I'll say. If I'm Daniel Jones' agent and I'm Daniel Jones, and let's say Carr signs tomorrow with the New York Jets for $45 million a year, does that give me a little bit more bargaining power? Probably a little bit.
It depends on how the contract's structured, though.
Yeah, of course.
But here's the other thing, though. And this, take this for what it's worth. It's not meant to be a slight against Daniel. This is just facts. He went 9-6-1. How many good teams did he beat? 2 good teams. Good defenses.
Baltimore,
and I think Washington
Bay
had a pretty good defense when they played him.
Yeah,
right?
He had a really good year, but he didn't have an elite
year. But and also this was like quarterbacking 101 for him. I keep saying that. What he was coached to do, he excelled in. All right, next year we get you, Daniel, we're going to get you receivers. We want to see how you do throwing the ball deep down the field. We want to see you go off of your move from your first read to your second read. So there are things that he still needs to show, in my opinion, that he hasn't shown yet before I go and say, okay, you are now a premier quarterback. You are up there with the
We're
Burrows
not giving him
Mahomes.
we're not giving the franchise contract yet.
No.
We're giving the starters contract. People just have not caught up to the idea that starters, after their rookie salary, make $35 to $38 million in today's NFL.
Right.
That's just the truth.
Right.
That's not franchise. The franchise is going to get $55 a year. Jalen's going to get $55 a year. Lamar Jackson's going to get $55 a year. The starters get $35 to $38.
Yep.
So he's going to get starters money. He ain't going to get franchise money. Not yet.
Not yet.
Yep.
No, he hasn't earned it yet. You can't give a guy franchise money on one good season.
One season.
Good season, because his rookie year, he showed flashes of it, but a lot of his numbers came in 4 games. I remember that. I was at one of them with Chris, the Jets game. He put up huge numbers against the Jets. He put up big numbers against Washington, a 5 touchdown game against Washington, 4 against Detroit. That's 13 touchdowns against those 3 teams. He had 11 touchdowns the other games that he played that year. So, again, he was good this year, and I'm not taking anything away from him. He proved we could win with him, and with not much around him. But at the same time, again, was that an anomaly? He was healthy for the first time. He played all the games. Obviously, sat out the last game wasn't due to injury. It was just due to we're resting our starters. So he played every game, didn't miss a game due to injury, first time in his career. And he improved. It took him 4 years to improve. How much of that was coaching? How much of that was Daniel Jones? You can't just give a guy a massive $45 million. You can't give him 5 years, $225 million based on one season. It's hard for me to do that.
That's what Denver did with Russell Wilson.
And it's not like he put up Pat Mahomes numbers either.
Right.
You know, so
Exactly.
it's tough. Like Chris said, starter money's fair. And I
Yes.
think you should get $35 to $38 million a year, but I'm not giving them 45 plus.
No, neither am I. All right, I want to answer this question from the Big Moo because it's about incentives. All right. So there are two types of incentives. There's likely to be earned, not likely to be earned. Likely to be earned and not likely to be earned are based on what the player did the year before. So by that, I mean, Jones threw for 15 touchdowns, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a clause, an incentive in his contract that says, okay, Daniel, we will pay you $500,000 if you throw for at least 15 touchdowns. That is a likely to be earned incentive because he has already met that criteria. He did it last year.
Yeah.
If you put an incentive in the contract that says, Daniel, we will pay you $500,000 if you throw for 20 touchdowns, that becomes a not likely to be earned incentive because he hasn't done it.
He will do it
So
next year, I think. But
Well, he did his rookie year.
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It has to be the year prior.
Well, yeah.
So that being said, when you have a likely to be earned incentive, that automatically gets deducted from the cap. That's part of the overall cap number. A not likely to be earned incentive, if the player reaches it, then it comes out of the following year's cap. If the player does not reach it, then it just goes away. So that's the difference between likely and not likely to be earned in a nutshell. Does that make sense, Mo?
And that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know how you know this a lot more than me with these little intricacies with the cap, but it makes a lot more sense to do a lot of not to be guaranteed. Yeah, what was the term again? Not likely.
Not likely and likely to be earned.
So a not likely to be earned. It makes a lot of sense to do those because even if he does hit that, one, you're happy to pay him the money, but two, if you got to pay him the next year that amount of money as opposed to the current year, next year that amount of money is not worth as much as it is in the current year because
The cap goes up every year.
So if you got to pay him $1 million on a not to likely and he hits it, that $1 million is next year is worth 1.1, 1.2 because the cap goes up. So it makes sense to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe there's going to be a mix of likely and not likely to be earned. I also would not be stunned if there was an option bonus, like I talked about earlier. So there are things they can do. And by the way, these things is what's going to inflate the numbers. So when the numbers are initially reported, you're going to say, oh, wow, he got $45 million a year. Well, it might not be a true $45 million a year. When you break down all the details and I'm going to be after that contract as soon as it's done. I'm going to get it and I'm going to scrutinize it really good.
I know more and more teams have been doing this. I saw somebody in the chat say it earlier, and I wanted to bring it up. Void years, because that's obviously a possibility with Daniel Jones, right? We've seen teams do it with quarterback. So I think they should responsibly, if it potentially use void years in this contract, because
I wouldn't use voids. I would use option years.
Okay.
Player option or team option. That's what I would use. I would not use a void.
Okay. Because the way I look at it, Patty, is in 6 years, say it's a 5-year contract, and you had a 6-year void for $10 million. Let's just say the cap's gonna be like almost $400 million in 6 years. It's gonna be like 2.5% of the cap, and it takes off $2 million a year on average over the course of the first 5 years of the contract. So that's the way I look at it.
Well, understand the signing bonus. The reason why you would want a larger contract, the signing bonus can be prorated up to 5 years. It cannot exceed 5 years. So you guys have probably heard me mention Josh Allen's contract.
Yes.
Josh Allen has structured guarantees, whereas if he hits certain triggers 2 years down the line, it's like, okay, and I don't have, let me call the deal up so I can actually, and I think I might have gone over this, but let me call it up and I'll tell you exactly how it's set up. Because it's pretty clever, and I could see this. Maybe not using this for Daniel right away, but down the line. All right. So Josh Allen in 2022 had a trigger March 21st. If he was on the roster, $10 million of his 2024 base salary is guaranteed. His 2024 base salary was $23.5 million. So as of March 21st of 2022, only $10 million was guaranteed. Now this year, if he is on the roster as of March 19th, the balance of his contract, his 2024 base salary is guaranteed. So that's a structured type of guaranteed which if the Giants get to that point with Daniel where he just becomes elite, I can see them deploying something similar. It's very clever the way the Bills did it, because if they have to get out of the contract, now they're not on the hook for gobs and gobs of guaranteed money.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking
it's
at
really
it.
kind of clever.
I'm looking at it. It's
complex at first when you look at it, but it makes sense.
It's a contract. The Bills, the way that they structured that, they made it plateau year 3, where it goes $51 million against the cap year 3, and then it starts to go down. And then they got no dead cap hit after 2026. So they
because
at that point they're going to give him the extension if he's
right.
But yeah, so people look at the cap in 2026, but in 2026 the cap is going to be like $350 million, and the cap it's only 46. So these contracts aren't going to look nearly as bad as they do right now, 4 or 5 years into the future for these guys. And Daniel Jones will be much less than that.
And then here's the other thing to keep in mind: you don't want that contract, exceeding a certain percentage of the overall cap. So let's look at the Bills just real quick. The Josh Allen contract is what? Let me see. In 2023, he represents 17.4% of the cap. And then it goes down to 16.3 in 2024. It goes up to 18 and then down to 15. You don't want your quarterback's contract taking up 20% or higher. You just, that's not smart business. Now, let me just see what Mahomes has. I think Mahomes is the exception here, but let me see.
Well, that was a 10-year contract. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was smart.
His is structured. Okay. Yeah. Mahomes is only 2023. He was at 22.4%. All right. Not a big deal there, but now it's down to 17. Okay. Yeah. It's going to be 22.4 this year. Then it's going to drop to 17, 16, and 13. And it looks like he's got some voidable. No, he doesn't have voidable years. It's just his signing bonus runs out after 2025. So it's a 5-year deal.
I'm going to give you a contract I absolutely love. I'm looking at these contracts right now for quarterbacks. You want to see how not to structure a deal? They franchise tagged him twice, first off, before they gave him the extension. Prescott.
Oh, Dak.
They franchise tagged him.
Let's take a look at Prescott. We're on Over the Cap, by the way, if anybody wants to follow along.
Dak Prescott next year, Patty. Next year, when the salary cap is $225 million, is going 49.1 against the cap.
21.5% of the cap.
That's year. Crazy. And by the way, the dead cap hits are too high to cut them. The next year, 52.1 against the cap. And on top of it, the year after that, when he's not on the team, they put in a $22 million void year where they have to pay him, and they're probably not going to extend him at that point. They completely botched that contract.
That contract is awful.
I love Jerry Jones.
What the heck were they thinking? I mean, good for Jerry. It screws them over.
And obviously, the pandemic hurt that. The pandemic hurt it because of the pandemic, they had to backload the money more to keep some of those guys on the roster.
They did that to Zeke, too. They gave him a terrible contract as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, but you're right. That's an example of how you don't want to structure a contract. It's just, oh my goodness. So, I mean, the bottom line with Daniel is I do think they'll get something done. I don't know necessarily they'll get it done by the 7th. And by the way, I get this question a lot. People say, "Oh, once they get something done, can they use the tag on somebody else?" Not this year. Once that March 7th deadline is done, if they sign Daniel March 8th, that's it. They can't turn around and say, "Okay, Saquon, we're tagging you now." No, it doesn't work that way. So hopefully that answers that question. All right. You know what, folks? Let's take a quick break. I only have one commercial I have to run tonight. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk some more about, the off season. If you have questions, pop them in the chat box and we will we'll get to them. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, the NFL season might be over, but the NBA season is in full swing. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 if their first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, super easy to use, and a lot of fun. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to the point spread and more. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a higher payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody, welcome back. See, I told you it would be a short commercial, just the only one we have tonight. Off season, so not as many commercials. I know some of you guys complain about them, but they're necessary, and we appreciate our sponsors here at the Locked On Network. So anyway, okay, so if you have questions, pop them into the chat box. Guys, we talked about, we touched a little bit on free agency. Let's talk outside of the Giants free agency realm here. Who are some of the names you guys are kind of hoping might land up on the Giants' radar?
Outside free agents.
Yeah, well, right, from other teams.
I mean, I have not. Listen, I've been focused so much on Jones and Barkley, but there's a couple of guys. Long, for example, that the linebacker. I think it's going to be a linebacker. Like if we're going to spend on a position in free agency relatively high, I think it'll be a linebacker for several reasons. One, it's obviously a huge need, obviously. And it's a position that has a good talent pool in this year's free agency period. You look at the wide receiver, it's slim pickings at the top of that wide receiver pool, and you're going to overpay for a guy that you shouldn't be overpaying for if you're trying to sign one of the better free agents in this year's class for the wide receiver. So I think if we're going to sign an impact player, it's going to be a linebacker. I don't think it's going to be the top. I don't think we're spending 15, 16. Yeah, I don't think we're doing that. But I think it'll be a guy that kind of like what we did with Blake Martinez a few years ago, where he wasn't like the premium linebacker, but he was kind of that next tier. I think we're going to do something like that at the linebacker spot. And then, get some depth on both sides of the line. Maybe add a cheaper wide receiver. You got to fill out your roster. But I don't, like we said at the top of the stream, I don't think we're going to go ham. I don't think we're going crazy in free agency. I think the bulk of our money is going to be used on Daniel Jones and, trying to keep this team intact and add a couple of nice pieces from the outside. But yeah, Long's a name people have brought up to me because they think he really fits the scheme, the linebacker from Tennessee. So I think we're going to be in that $8 to $10 million ballpark for a linebacker. That's where I think our big signing will be.
I don't know. I'll be honest. Since the NFL season ended, I've been lazy with stuff. I just wanted some time.
You're just celebrating that the Eagles lost.
I love the fact the Eagles lost, but it's just, I'm this year was exhausting. I think because part of it was like normally we're already looking at the draft. Like the football is an afterthought in November with the Giants. It's usually, who we get in the draft? Who's a free? Like I start looking at it in November. Before this year went right through January. It was an extra week long, and I was like, you know what, this is a long season. I just wanted to take some time off. But I tend to agree. I don't think we're going to make a massive splash in free agency. I don't think that's the way that's not really the way you build it. Anyway, you build through the draft. We have 11 draft picks, I think, this year. I think that's what Shane wants to do. He's looking at the future. And you do want to keep your own guys. Daniel Jones is obviously the focal point. They're going to have to get this done because
Bad dog froze. Yeah, bad dog froze.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
All right. In the meantime, speaking of free agents and wide receivers, let me just put a couple questions up here. James Vegas wants to know, do the Giants go after Robert Woods on a cheap deal? Woods was just released by, I think, the Titans, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so, I mean, I get the link, right? He was with the Bills for a little bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
But Woods he's a slot. He's okay. I mean, maybe that's the type of wide receiver I think we're looking at. If we're going to sign one in free agency, kind of a guy that's past his prime, you're going to get for $4 or $5 million that you can bring. Yeah, that type of receiver probably. I don't expect a big premium receiver in free agency, but we got to fill out our roster. But that type of guy, sure.
Yeah. All right. Here's another one asked by Giants Chronicles podcast. What do you think about signing G.J. Chark or Mecole Hardman?
I think Hardman's going to be way overpriced. Chark, maybe. I don't know what his market will be. Maybe I'll be wrong about Hardman, but I think Hardman's going to be in like that $10 to $14 million range, if I had to guess, just because he's young with upside and the wide receiver market is so thin. Nothing would surprise me. I saw Christian Kirk got $20 million last year. And he's a really good receiver, but nobody thought he was going to get that. And you have a really thin wide receiver market. I think you're going to overpay for those Hardmans, Juju Smith-Schusters, the guys at the top of the market.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just seems to me like there's more slot options than there are X options. But
Yeah.
that's where I think they go to the draft for the X, and maybe I don't know. Do they need to add another slot? I mean, they're going to get at some point Wan'Dale Robinson will be ready to go, but I don't know if that's going to be at the start of the season. I'm curious to see if that happens or not. I'm also curious to see what they come up with when they how they're going to address this injury situation. I know they're doing all kinds of studies on that as well. So that'll certainly be interesting. All right, Papa Guzzo wants to know, do I think Daniel wants to stay with the Giants? Why wouldn't he? I mean, this is like the entertainment mecca of the world. There's plenty of opportunities for endorsements. He lives in Hoboken, if I'm not mistaken, which is a ferry ride over to Manhattan. It's a good area. I mean, why not? You're in this probably the biggest media market in the NFL besides LA. So yeah, I think he does.
You left out the most important reason why I think he does. Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka.
Yep.
That's the biggest reason for me if I'm Daniel Jones why I want to stay, right? Year 2 in the same offense, getting to come back with a guy that has a proven track record of being a really good offensive mind, obviously with Brian Daboll. So, and obviously familiarity with the players on the team, right? He has a chance to grow and build off of what he's already built with this new regime last year. He's well respected in this building. Daniel Jones is much more valuable to the Giants than anybody else because they know him in the building. Kind of like what Joe Shane said in his closing press conference. They know his work ethic. They know
exactly
the work he puts in. And he knows that. And
right.
He absolutely wants to. There's no doubt about it. Daniel
Right.
Jones wants to be a Giant, but he also wants to be fairly compensated.
Sure.
And it's a status thing. As people call him greedy, but if Daniel Jones signs a deal for $25 million, he's looked around the league as a joke. He's the starter. He's the starter that took $25 million. Look at what Derek Carr just got with the Jets for 43, and what so and so got for this. So he's gonna be fairly compensated. Hopefully, it's a little less than what I'm projecting. Because the smaller, the better. It helps the Giants build the team better long term. But it's gonna be a fair contract. He'll be back. But yeah, he absolutely wants to stay here, and the Giants absolutely want to keep him. I have no doubt in my mind.
Absolutely. All right. This question's from Slick Rick. You guys think the Hendon Hooker rumors last day or so are just to pressure DJ, or is there legit interest there? Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't here's Dog's back. Let me just add him back in here.
Sorry about that. I don't know what that we just the power just went out here for like 30 seconds and came right back on. So I don't know.
I'm glad. I was worried there. I thought it was maybe something I said.
No, I don't know what the hell just happened. Everything just went dark. It just came back on.
All right.
That's National Grid. It's a lousy power company.
Well, we're glad to have you back. We're
good to be back.
Now. So, all right. So, do you think that the Hendon Hooker rumors the last day or so are just to pressure DJ, or is there legit interest there? How do we know they weren't talking to Hooker about the receivers? Maybe they were watching receivers, or exactly, Hyatt. Were they maybe talking about somebody else?
I laughed at the Hendon Hooker thing.
Yeah,
he's older than Daniel Jones, number one.
Yeah.
And Hendon Hooker's coming off a torn ACL, and he literally plays in an offense that runs up to the line of scrimmage and has 13 plays in the playbook. I don't want Hendon Hooker on anywhere near the Giants. Jalen Hyatt, I take him in a heartbeat. Okay, but Hendon Hooker, that's not.
Just because you see the Giants talking to a quarterback doesn't
doing due diligence.
Look, I do think the Giants will draft the quarterback as a developmental prospect, maybe on day 3. For those who haven't heard, Davis Webb is officially retired. He's now the quarterback's coach with Sean Payton in Denver. So I do think the Giants will look to get a developmental prospect, but if anything, it'll be like late in day 3, I would think. I don't think it's going to be,
I mean, I don't care. That has nothing to do with Daniel Jones. Hendon Hooker he's like a 3rd round prospect, 4th round prospect. He's coming off an injury, ACL. Like Bad Dog said, he's 25. They could draft him in the 3rd round. They have 2 3rd-round picks, and they could be drafting him with the intention for him to be a backup for Daniel Jones. There are plenty of backup quarterbacks that get drafted in the 3rd, 4th round. And just because they're looking at Hendon Hooker, what does that mean? It's not like It means
Right. That was
nothing.
just like when they went out and they sent their scouts out to look at CJ Stroud.
It means they're doing their due
doesn't
diligence.
mean anything.
They're
That's
doing their
what
due
you're
diligence.
supposed to do
Right.
as a scouting
Exactly.
department. You go and scout players, and who's to say they went to Ohio State just to look at CJ Stroud? They got pretty good wide receivers at Ohio State if nobody noticed.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so-
Exactly. So it doesn't, the short answer is no, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
We're going to hear a lot about they talked to this
yeah.
guy, they talked to that
All
guy,
right.
they talked to this guy.
Wagner
So
Charles,
I actually was able to go to the rain room during the commercial break, so it was not my bathroom break, and I wouldn't have been able to see where I was going anyway, so that would not have been good. It was pitch black in here for like 30 seconds.
Wow. Well, all right. Wagner Charles asked, what do you think of Taylor Lewan? I think he's going to be outside their price point. And where would you put him anyway? I think, look, I mean, at this point with the offensive line, I would want to get young. Put that group together. Have a good young line.
We're not signing a tackle.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, see where Evan Neal is this year. The hope is he'll get better.
Joe Shane didn't invest the 7th overall pick in Evan Neal to give up on him after 1 year.
Exactly.
That's not happening.
Right. All right. Rob asks if there's any news of a draft party event. Rob, too soon to say. I haven't heard anything, and I probably won't for another, if there's going to be something, we won't hear about it till April. So too early to say. If I hear anything, I'll tweet about it. But right now, I don't know anything. All right. Jake Patterson asked if David Long would be a sensible signing for the Giants. Yeah, I could go for that.
Yeah. He was the guy I was just mentioning a couple minutes ago.
Pair him with McFadden, though. I mean, Darian Beavers is coming back again. McFadden, I thought he was a little overmatched there. I mean, when was the last time you saw the Giants go through so many guys at a position, not because of injury? I mean, what'd they go through? Like 4 different guys because they just weren't up to snuff, and it wasn't because of injury? That was kind of weird, kind of wacky, if you ask. So anyway, Giants Mafia, do you think Brian Daboll would rather draft a quarterback than keep Danny? I think Brian Daboll would want the best quarterback for the job. And if that quarterback was not necessarily one he drafted, I don't think Daboll has the ego to where he's going to insist that he get his guy.
It looked like Daboll liked Danny to me down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree too.
That's not the vibe that I got. The last 5-6 games, like he
went out of his way to praise him.
Danny.
Went out of his way to praise him.
Yeah, he went out of his way to praise him early in the year too. So I actually got, if anything, it was the opposite for me because Joe Shane was more reserved, not just with Jones, but just the players in general. Until after the postseason, he kind of really spoke very highly of Daniel. But Daboll all year, I thought, was pretty outspoken in his praise for Daniel Jones.
Yes, he was. He definitely was.
Yeah, I thought that Daboll liked Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
he did.
So, like I said, I'll be shocked if Daniel Jones is not a Giant going forward. I'm way more shocked if he's not a Giant as opposed to Saquon Barkley.
Yes. Hopefully they're both a Giant. I'd be shocked, I think, if both of them are in 2023, but Daniel will be back for sure. All right. LA Larosity, is DJ so egocentric that he thinks he will have the same going to another team? Look, here's my take on this. We all think I think most of us will agree that we all think we're worth more than what we actually get paid. Yeah. I mean, if you don't think that, then, you're lying to yourself. So,
I'm worth more than what I get paid. I know that.
I could sit here and say, well, I could go and take my talents to the New York Times and I could get paid twice what I'm being paid. And, I'll have it just as good. You don't know. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. And, when you make these decisions, you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons. I'll tell you guys it's related, but not related. My younger brother likes to make as much money as he can. And 1 year.
Is he the Chiefs fan? He must have been fun.
Who's that?
Is he the Chiefs fan?
The Chiefs fan, yeah.
He must have
Don't get me started on him. Don't get me, because he's still breaking my chops. But anyway,
I'm sure he is.
He 1 year he decided to go to work for this bank, and they paid him a ton of money, but the hours were just insane.
Yeah.
And he would come home and he barely had time for his wife and his infant daughter at the time. Gosh, that was like over 20. She's 21 now. So that was that over 20 years ago. And ultimately he realized that, yeah, I'm getting paid all this money, but I don't have a life. So he
Yeah.
quit that job, took a job for less money, more reasonable hours. So the point being
He was
is the
happier.
grass isn't always greener on the other side just because you're getting more money.
Yeah.
Money doesn't
True.
always,
That's definitely
calm
true.
everything.
Yeah.
That's definitely true.
So yeah, that I think Daniel is smart enough to understand that. And if he's not, then
Well,
I don't
like
know
we
what to
talked
tell you.
about, though, I mean, if Daniel Jones is smart, he's only 25. He really could write his own ticket. If he says, okay, I don't need to get 45 million a year, I will do 35, 36 million a year, build a team around me, and I'll prove that I can win more. I can get to a Super Bowl. I can win a Super Bowl. And then, yeah, if the cap goes up a lot, and you're going to get your 50, 55 million a year if that's the case. You can bet on yourself because 3 years, you're 28. You're right in your prime. It's not like it's a running back. Saquon needs to get his money now. Running backs don't get a second contract that's as, or third contract as big as their second. They get the rookie contract. Then they're pretty much in their prime when they're drafted.
Right.
Yep.
Running backs and primes are pretty much 22 to 27. They start to fall. Not everybody. And Barkley's a freak of nature when it comes to his, physique, his athleticism. The guy's ridiculous. The guy's not human. Adrian Peterson wasn't human either. But most running backs start to tail off by the time they're 30. So they're not going to get, when Saquon Barkley's 30, if he gets a 5-year deal, he's not going to get 5 years, $95 million when he's 30. So running backs need to strike while it's hot. Quarterbacks, not so much. Your third contract could be way bigger than your second because they can play into their 40s if they choose to.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
Daniel Jones, I think, and I don't think Daniel Jones, he's not stupid. He's a smart kid. He's going to weigh all of his options. And
I just laugh at people that pick at Daniel Jones for trying to make as much as he can.
No, you should.
You wouldn't do the same thing. Anybody that says they wouldn't do the same thing is either an idiot or full of crap.
Yeah.
At the end of the day in the NFL, it is a cold, hard business, right? They could cut you whenever they want. Daniel Jones has dealt with scrutiny, nonsense from this fan base. He's been a meme, injuries.
Well, one play could end your career in the NFL.
And they have given him nothing since he's been here. Nothing.
Right.
And the owner admitted that they've done nothing to help him.
Yeah, exactly.
So anybody that's knocking Daniel Jones to try to get what he can, they're full of shit. They're full of crap. They would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you could say, oh my God, well, 35 million. I mean, this and that. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of money to us. We don't know what the hell $35 million is, but it's all relative, right? It's all relative to what he makes. That's like you working for your company. It's relative to what your coworkers make. You're not gonna go, well, I get $30 million in my job, but if somebody's making an extra 10,000 and you're doing the same job, based on percentages or whatever, you're gonna say, well, I should get that extra $10,000 too. Why do they get $10,000? I'm doing the same thing as them. I have the same production as them, work the same hours as them. Why the hell ain't I getting that extra $10,000?
Exactly.
Yeah. When you're talking millions and millions, we don't understand that. I don't understand. I wish I did. I wish I knew what the hell $35 million was. But again, it's all relative to what their coworkers make. That's what agents do. Look at this guy. Look at Derek Carr. He's getting 45 million or whatever it is. Look at this guy. Look at this. Look at the comparable guys and look at their contracts. My client deserves this. My client, if Derek Carr gets 45 million, now they can easily say, look at Derek Carr has been in the league this long. Derek Carr has put up these numbers. Derek Carr has dealt with injury. Derek Carr hasn't won anything with Los Angeles. Or Las Vegas rather, or Los Angeles when they were over there, or Oakland, or wherever the hell the Raiders play these days. You would say he's got Devontae Adams. He's got one of the best receivers in the league. He's got Josh Jacobs. He's got this. He's got that. Daniel Jones don't have any of that. Daniel Jones won more games. So you can do that, and that's your job as an agent, is to get your player the most money. That's their job because they get a percentage.
And by the same token, Joe Shane's getting paid whatever he's getting paid, which I don't know, $5 million a year. I don't know what he makes, but he's getting paid whatever he's getting paid. to get Daniel Jones back as cheaply as he can.
Exactly.
And
Right.
that's the cat and mouse game. But
Negotiation. It's negotiate. Listen, Chris, you have a government job, right?
Yep.
I have a state job. We deal in unions. It's all about negotiations. It's all about give and take. It really is. And let's face it, we always get screwed. Let's face it, we never get what we're supposed to get, but we're not NFL players.
I'm so glad I don't
don't
have to deal with that. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that. All right. By the way, folks, if you put a question and we didn't get to it because I'm getting a lot, just repeat it and I'll get it if I see it again. Let me see. I think I just saw something about a question about Adoree Jackson. Where did I see that? Gosh, we're getting so, and I appreciate all the comments we're getting, but somebody asked if the Giant. Oh, here it is. I think this is it. Abe Froman, do you think we should extend Adoree to bring down his cap hit this year? He's only 28 or 29, maybe a 3-year extension. Let me take a look at Adoree's contract.
I think he's like 19 against the cap this year, but then he's
let me take a look.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would extend it, but let me see.
I honestly think he's gone.
I don't think I would extend Adoree.
Future Giant. Because if we go corner, I mean, we drafted Cordell Flott. You're going to want to draft another corner. You're probably going to look to replace Adoree Jackson. I would think. I mean, I don't know.
I could see it. It's possible, but I'm not banking on it.
I'm not banking on it either. I think that's like at the bottom of the list of things to do. I think
they want to extend Leonard. I think
I would extend Leo before I'd extend him. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Leo for sure, and obviously Dex, even though Dex is under contract for this coming year. So, Adoree, I don't think, and I like Adoree. Don't get me wrong, but Amazing Guy puts this up. Weren't we supposed to have 80 million in cap space? Amazing Guy. This is why I keep telling you guys when you see other content creators say, "Oh, the Giants are going to have 80 million in cap space," or this. The cap space situation is fluid. It changes. Guys are signed. You got the top 51 rule that's going to come into effect on March 15, all right, which is going to totally change everything. That's going to, affect the effective cap space versus the real cap space. Don't go by what people are posting during the season, what the projections are, because guys get re-signed, guys are going, all this stuff.
At the end of the day, you want to
it's fluid.
You want a healthy cap situation. That's what you want.
Which they have.
Yeah, you don't. The following year, we have a ton of cap space now. That's exciting, but that's going to get eaten up quick because you're going to extend Jones. You're going to extend Lawrence. You might extend Andrew Thomas, right? So that's the way,
a possibility.
That's that, and you're going to make some free agent signings along the way. So it gets eaten up quick. You want a healthy cap situation. You never want. I think it's a bad thing when you go into the year with the most cap space, like the Chicago Bears, because that means you had nobody on your team worth keeping. Yeah. So you want to have a situation where you have enough money to be able to keep your homegrown talent.
Absolutely.
And like Baltimore does. Baltimore finds a way to do that. Pittsburgh finds a way to do that. The teams that are consistently successful, consistently contend, consistently are playoff contenders. You're not going to contend for a Super Bowl every year. That's almost impossible unless you're Tom Brady and the Patriots. That was about it. Or the Steelers in the 70s, which was a different animal. There was no free agency back then. But or there was free agency, but the cap was way different. Things are way different in the 70s than they are now. But the teams that draft well, and the teams that, like Chris said, have a healthy cap situation where they're not cap stricken and they don't have $100 million in cap space, they're the ones that are always there. So that is, you want to be consistent. You want to draft well. You want to be able to keep your players, and the ones you can't, you get comp picks for them and you replace them with good drafting. That's why GMs make their money in the 3rd through the 6th round. I mean, you should not be missing. You should be getting your guys in the 1st and 2nd round. But the guys that find those 4th round, 5th round, 6th round talents that come in and produce, those are the guys that are the best GMs. Yep. And that's why Baltimore is able to, because they always have a good draft. Baltimore always has the best draft. I swear to God, they always have the best draft in a draft. I don't know how they do it, but they do.
Yeah, they're the goals along with Philly. Philly does a good job.
Unless they draft the wide receiver. They did good with Devontae Smith. We know that how we don't know anything about wide receiver. he took Nelson Aguilar and who was the other guy he took instead of taking Justin Jefferson?
He had three names. He had
three names. Oh gosh, I can't remember the guy's name.
He took JJ or Arcega-Whiteside.
That was the one.
That might have been.
Yeah, that was the guy. Yeah,
that was
he
the
didn't know. You don't know what he's doing with wide receiver.
That was the one.
So he just went out and said, "You know what? The hell with it. I'm just going to trade for AJ Brown." And that was the smartest thing he did.
Yes, it was. Alex Cordero wants to know: does it make sense to let Barkley go and then replace him with Bijan Robinson? Retain RB talent to help Jones, but on a rookie contract for 5 years. I don't think the Giants
amazing. It was not to interrupt. It was Jalen Reagor. That's the guy. That's the guy.
Oh, Reagor, okay. Yeah.
I don't think the Giants are going to have a shot at getting Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, he's going to go early.
He's not going to be there when
he's
the Giants
one of the best running backs in the draft.
But to your point about having a rookie on a maybe a rookie running back, I could see that being the case. It ain't going to be Robinson, though. I would be stunned if Robinson's there by the Giants. And even if he's there when the Giants go on the clock, if they take a running back at 25,
Shane's not going to take a running back.
He's not going to do it. No.
This is all I need to know about Joe Shane's. If Joe Shane's not willing to bring back Saquon Barkley on a $10 million tag, which those are the reports, he's not going to take a running back in the first round of a draft.
Yeah.
He's just not. So I don't see him with all the other needs that we have at more important positions, wide receiver, offensive line, corner, linebacker. There's so many good running backs in this draft. You could get a really good one in the third, fourth round. I don't see him prioritizing a first round.
It is a deep draft. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I keep talking about this, but on tomorrow's show, which drops at midnight tonight, just after midnight, Damian Parson who's with the Draft Network. He's a national scout. Just the knowledge and the names he dropped. You guys got to check that show out. Got to check that out. I'm telling you, I came away.
I've heard by.
I put a clip on it on my Instagram account. So I was like, he talked about linebacker because it's like that was one of the positions that he, that I said, hey, you haven't said anything about linebacker here, and he's like, okay, I'll give you some names, and he gave out, and here's at the bottom, I've got my Instagram account here at Patty Traina. Yeah, I was like, wow. He gave a lot of good names. So definitely check that show out. I was really happy with how that came out. He's one of our new Locked On NFL hosts. So
that's awesome.
I think you guys will like that show. He and another person from the Draft Network, Coach Keith, who used to be with LSU, as a matter of fact. They make a great team.
Coach Keith, I've been on Twitter Spaces with Coach Keith, right? Oh no, that's Coach.
Coach Gene is who you're thinking of.
Coach Gene.
Yeah, Coach Gene. Yeah, this is Keith. Actually, I'll look up his name. I'll tell you who it is. He used to be with LSU, so just bear with me a second, Aaron. I'll tell you who it was because I'm trying to book him actually for next. Keith Sanchez. He's a senior draft analyst with the Draft Network. And he's former lead personnel guy at LSU. So really good, the two of them do a great job with the at the Locked On NFL Draft. So I highly recommend you check that out if you have time, not just this week, but
I'm checking it out. I've heard by countless people that running backs are so good in this draft.
Yes, it's very deep.
And the free agency class. So even more of a reason why we would never take a Bijan Robinson.
Right. All right. I see a couple of people have asked me about Darian Beavers. I don't have an update on him because I think he rehabbed away from the team. And when he did come in, it was obviously not when the media was allowed in. But the expectation, from what I understand, is he should be ready to start for training camp. Because of when that injury took place. I think that injury took place, in the second week of preseason? So he should be good to go, I think, at that point. So
I'm excited for him.
Yeah.
Who knows? You never know how these guys respond after they have the injury, but Ryan Conley wasn't the same player, right? So
exactly. We have to see. See, obviously. All right, Giants Chronicle podcast. What do you think about signing a player like Denzel Perryman? You know what? Years ago, if you'd asked me that, I would have said absolutely, because I always liked Perryman coming out of college. Now I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. Just because he was a Pro Bowler and All Pro years ago, does that mean he still is today? I think too many people get hung up on that.
Yeah.
So
You get hung up on the name. And you
yeah,
overpay.
That or if they were a former first-round pick. A lot of times,
yeah,
oh, he's a former first-round pick, right? But that doesn't mean he lived up to first-round pick expectations either.
right, right.
So
And but
there's
I've
a
had
reason first-round picks hit the free agency market.
yeah, exactly.
Evan Ingram.
All right, Fabian wants to know: do you
Right.
consider DJ our long term or a bridge?
YTD, is that fair to say? Yet to be determined?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think it's fair.
The way I view him is he's good enough to find out if he
They can
can
win
be a
with him.
franchise quarterback.
Yeah,
He's
they
not a
can win with
franchise
him.
quarterback yet. He's good enough to find out if he could become one, which a lot of quarterbacks are not good enough to find out if they could become one. Mitch Trubisky was not good enough to find out if he
Sam
could become
Darnold
one.
was not good enough.
Sam Darnold was not good enough to find out if he, Baker Mayfield was not good enough to find out if he could become one. Daniel Jones is good enough to find out if he gets more help, more support, more familiarity, more consistency with a coaching staff, if he could become one. That's my answer for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely. All right. Papa Guzzo wants to know: do we draft a center and 2 guards or just 1 guard in the draft? I'd like a center, and I'll tell you what, I'd like another offensive tackle, a backup. I'm not so sure what they have in Matt Parrott, but this is what, 3 years now that he's going
They're
on?
not so sure they have a Matt Parrott.
I would get a backup tackle.
I agree.
I would like to see them get a center who can also, if need be, swing out to guard.
I want
So,
a defense. I'm gonna tell you one position that a lot of people are overlooking. I think
defensive line.
defensive tackle. We need a run stuffer.
Yes.
We need a run stuffer.
Yes.
As good as much as I like Dex and Leo, like we were getting bullied up at the line of scrimmage,
Well,
right?
because
When
they
you
were
go back,
being overused. They were being overdeployed.
yeah,
What were they playing, like 80% of the snaps when they were in there?
Don't be shocked if the Giants drafted defensive tackle a lot earlier than you think.
I had them drafting a defensive tackle in my mock draft that I posted before. Yeah, I had them drafting. I forget. I think I had them in at the 3rd round.
Yeah, don't be
So
surprised.
yeah, absolutely,
No,
absolutely.
like I said, they have a lot. They have a lot of positions they got to fill. What they did this year with what they had is remarkable. But it tells you what they could do if they fill some of these spots. That they were
Mhm.
able to win 9 games and they were able to win a playoff game with the lack of talent showed up big against Philadelphia. We were just out talented. They were just better. I mean, I hate losing to Philadelphia. Everybody knows how I feel about the Eagles. I don't like them. I don't think there's anybody on YouTube that doesn't know I'm not a big Eagles guy. I hate them. But at the end of the day, and I hate losing to them. But the way we lost, I can live with that. They're better. And I can sit there and go, I hate losing them, but they just walloped us. And they did it the first time they played us too. They just bullied us. They're just better. That happened. The gap in talent, we could not overcome that. No matter how good of a job Daniel Jones did this year, no matter how good a job Dable and Kafka and Wink Martindale did, no matter how good they did, they couldn't mask the fact that Philadelphia was just way more talented than us.
Right.
When I look at Philadelphia 2 years ago, they were 4-11 or whatever. They were 4-11-1. And then they went and they didn't belong in the playoffs. Nobody expected them to be in the playoffs. Wentz got hurt. They used Jalen Hurts or whatever it was. Wentz went away. They used Jalen Hurts the second year. They were 5-7 at one point. They're done. And they ended up getting to the postseason. They finished wherever they finished on 9-8 that year. They got killed by Tampa Bay.
By the way, that year, not this year, the year before, they went 9-8. They didn't beat a single team who finished over 500.
Right. They got in the postseason. They got absolutely demolished by a team that was better than them. Then they went back and they fixed spots that they needed to fix. Yeah. I'm not saying in 2 years we're going to the Super Bowl like they did, but you can look at the improvement that we had from 2021 to 2022 and say, we got the right pieces. We got the right GM. We got the right coach. Now it's a matter of getting the talent in here. And I think that Joe Shane, Brandon Brown, and these guys, I think they're going to do that. I think these guys have a long-term plan. They know what they want to do. They know the direction they want to take the team. They know the players that they want, or the type of player that they want, and they're going to do what they can to get us there. So I look at Philadelphia's improvement when a lot of people said they probably was really bad that they went to the playoffs because they're not a Super Bowl team. And then in 1 year there they are. They're the best team in the NFC this year. Outside of maybe San Fran. If San Fran doesn't get hurt, who knows? But they're one of the best teams
Yeah, I mean,
in the NFC. So
and what stood out to you, Bad Dog? Watch that. For me, the line.
the line, their offensive line, they're pushing us back 10 yards down the field. And that's why I'm like, you know what?
You want that offensive line.
I can live without Saquon Barkley if I have that offensive line. Because I don't care who the hell's back there. If I'm back there, I get 4 yards behind.
Well, remember a few years ago when Barkley was out, Wayne Gallman,
right?
He was functional.
Yeah.
Why? Because he got good run blocking.
I love.
Yes, to a degree, you need a running back with vision and the ability to cut and all that stuff. That's important, but run blocking.
Run blocking is like I said, it's about good running game, not so much about a superstar running back. I love Barkley. I'd love Barkley to be a Giant his whole career, but I just think that offensive line is much more important because we saw when our offensive line gets beat. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, O.J. Simpson, Jim Brown. If you have guys in the backfield because your line's getting pushed back in the ring, you're not going to be successful. Right. But you look at a guy like Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, you look at that group of running backs and how good the Eagles were at running the ball, including Jalen Hurts. Mm-hmm. They don't need a superstar running back. You can do it with serviceable to good running backs and a fantastic offensive line. That offensive line, and Chris has talked about it since I've known Chris on here. He dreams about hogs, or he dreams about the guys.
I want what the Eagles have.
It's so, I listen, I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of that.
Oh, be careful. We might have some Eagle fans on here.
What's that?
We might have some Eagle fans on here. You don't want them
giving
saying,
them credit. They got a great line.
Yeah, I listen. I hate them, Patty, but I will give them credit, and that's why I have a lot of Eagle fans that tune into my channel that actually like my content because I do give them credit when they do. I don't like them. I'm a Giants fan. I'm supposed to hate them. That's my job, and I think some of the Eagle fans like the way I go after them too. I think they enjoy that. At the same time, but they're a good team, and they're a great team. I'm glad they didn't win the Super Bowl.
I'm watching the games in the playoffs with the Eagles. Every time they run a QB sneak, Jalen Hurts is getting 4 yards.
Yeah,
because Kelsey's pushing the guy back 3 of them.
Yeah,
like their interior offensive line is insane. And
that's good.
And I do see an Eagles fan in here. His name is Fly Eagles Fly. He says Torrance out of Florida. I wouldn't be upset with him in the first round. He's a really good guard prospect out of Florida. I don't know if he'll be there when we pick. I wouldn't be upset with him in the first round.
Yeah.
We really, that offense, especially if you, and I think they will, you give Daniel Jones a big contract, you're going to want to protect him. You're going to want to get him protection front. You're not going to want him running for his life. You don't want him running for his life anyway. But if you're giving him $36 million a year, you certainly don't want him on the shelf.
Yeah.
If you believe in him enough to get him, and that's what I think the Giants are going to do. If they pay Daniel Jones, they're going to say, okay, well, we got to protect him. And
absolutely.
I think that's. I was going in, I was like, you know what, they need a number one receiver. I kept saying receiver, but the more I think about it, when I'm again talking about giving Daniel Jones all this money, gotta protect him. That offensive line is paramount.
We do need
when it comes to succeeding on offense. We need that. We really need that interior offensive line. We got the bookend tackles. We really got to build that up in front of Daniel Jones because if our offensive line is good, he's going to be successful.
Absolutely.
I think in an ideal world, we trade for a very good wide receiver this offseason.
Yeah.
Hopkins, baby. Something to keep an eye on.
And then you keep establishing the interior offensive line. And let's talk more about the defensive line because we need both. And it was the same story. You got to compete from within the division. Mm-hmm. That's what you got to do.
That's our next move, Chris. We got to beat the Eagles. We got to beat the Cowboys. That's our next step.
All you got to do, Bad Dog, is look at those 5 games. I'll exclude the last regular season game because it was our backups. Mm-hmm. The playoff game against the Eagles, the regular season game against the Eagles, and both regular season games against the Cowboys. What happened?
We lost the line of scrimmage, both sides.
Didn't just lose it. We got decapitated on the line of scrimmage. Our defensive line got Cooper Rush. He's standing back there. He's got like 10 seconds to throw the first game. He just can't. And you get all these people on Twitter. Oh, Cooper Rush better than Daniel. Did you watch the game? Daniel Jones was pressured 27 times, and Cooper Rush was reading the Lord of the Rings novel, waiting for his wide receivers to get open after 12-second routes. So it was the same story when you played both the Cowboys and the Eagles. And until such time we can start to compete up at the point of attack, we're not beating those teams consistently.
Right. As
Not
much
gonna
as the
happen.
game has changed, it's still won in the trenches. It's still won at the line of scrimmage. You win the
Absolutely.
line of scrimmage, you're most likely going to win the game. You
Yep.
lose that line of scrimmage, especially on both sides of the ball, you really don't have a chance. And that's why both of those teams kicked the hell out of us. They were
Yep.
not close. Like, yeah, the Cowboys games, the score was closer than the actual
wasn't
game.
close.
You watch the game, we got dominated. Philadelphia, again, excluding the last game, because who knows really what was going on there. That really, you could throw that one away. The first game, they ran for like 270 yards against us. In the playoffs, they ran for like 200. Jalen Hurts didn't even do anything. Here you go. Yep, here, just take the ball. Take it. Up 12 yards. Up, take it. 19 yards. Here, hand the ball. 7 yards. 12 yards. Here, just here. Here. And Jalen Hurts was like, here, I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to watch. I want Daniel Jones to go there. Here you go. I don't care who the running back is. Here you go. Travis Dye out of USC. Here you go, buddy. Here, take the ball. I'm going to watch.
You just want you want to see some pancakes, right?
Yes, I love pancakes. Like I said, speak softly and carry a
I want to be
pancake
able to call
block.
our
Andrew
offensive
Thomas.
line IHOP.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
That's
You
what I
heard
want
it
to call.
here first. IHOP. If the Giants get a pancake.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Come
That'd be a
on.
great nickname for our line. We need that.
You got to trademark that, man. You got to get that circulating. IHOP. I love it. Oh my gosh.
Maybe I'll start making T-shirts when we get a good
There
offensive
you go.
line.
I like it. Oh man, everybody heard it. Chris came up with it first. So, all right. H1000. Does the NFLPA allow Bobby Bonilla contracts? No. And why the heck would anybody want to give a contract like that? What a disaster that contract was. for the
Oh,
Mets.
now it's not because our owner just doesn't care. But when we had
Yeah.
Wilpon, that was
Oh, there's no salary. There was no salary cap in baseball. There still isn't. It's a luxury tax, but they didn't have any salary.
yeah. But with
Yeah.
Wilpon, it mattered because we were so cheap. But now it doesn't matter. But I mean, they do have deferred contracts, void years, and I think if it's used responsibly,
Yeah, but then not like what
no,
Bobby
not
Bonilla
like
got.
30
Yeah,
years
I
worth
wouldn't
of
do
$2
something
million
like
a
that.
year or whatever it was.
Yeah.
They didn't think that
No.
through.
Yeah. All right. Somebody asked about Izudu and where he's at. I don't know exactly where he's at, if he's been cleared yet. My understanding is they're optimistic he will be okay. I don't know the extent of his neck injury, but obviously that's something they're going to tread lightly with because you don't want to mess around with the neck. Sort of like the same situation like what they had with Daniel. I don't know if it was the same injury, but they are hopeful that he's going to be okay. And that, by the way, keep an eye on what they do in free agency, the draft, because if you see them taking more guards, sure sign that maybe all's not well there.
We'll see.
All right. Somebody asked, let's see, the Earl 14 is Dalvin a free agent? Dalvin Tomlinson. Believe
he is.
so.
Yeah, he's also older, but
I don't know if would you want him back? I don't know. I think I would want to go. The defensive tackle class is so deep.
no,
It's amazing.
I wouldn't
all-
want him
all
back.
the
I mean,
major
unless he came really cheap, but no, I wouldn't want him back.
I mean, I think all the major needs where the Giants have needs, cornerback is deep, running back is deep, defensive line, defensive interior is deep, interior
Everything is
offensive
deep
line.
in this draft class except for like the quarterbacks.
Right.
Quarterbacks are not deep.
Well, there's
We
also
don't need
some
one of
people-
those.
Depending on who you believe, some people say that the receiver class isn't that special, but no, from
there's some
what
pretty good
Damian
ones
told
out
me,
there.
he said too many people are getting hung up on the box scores and they're not looking at the whole picture. He said the receivers class is really a lot better than people give it credit for. It's the free agent class that's not as good.
Most people have said that it's a deep receiver class. It's not necessarily as top heavy as some other classes,
Right.
but it's a deep class.
All right.
Which is fine because we picked 25th.
Yeah.
Right.
We
exactly.
don't want it to be top heavy.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, let me see. I see a few people have mentioned John Michael Schmitz, the center from Minnesota. Yeah, he's the real deal,
You really
folks.
can't go wrong with a Big Ten center. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
All those
He's the real
guys,
deal, folks. I watched
Minnesota,
his tape and I
Penn
was, like,
State,
blown away.
Wisconsin, they're all
Iowa,
tough. They're
Mhm.
Iowa. They're all
Linderbaum. I wanted him.
I wanted Linderbaum
Yeah.
too. Those two centers I want. I mean, Creed Humphrey was a guy I touted for years, but he
Yeah.
played at Oklahoma. But still, I loved him and Linderbaum. Yeah, those are two guys. It's like, oh my god, I wish the Giants.
Mhm. Man, if they got Schmitz, I think I would do backflips up and down Route 3.
Yeah.
I'll be
I
thrilled
can't
if
do a
we get him.
backflip.
Get him in the second round. I'll be thrilled.
Oh, if he's sitting there, I have, I've seen him mocked to Detroit. I could just see the Lions taking him.
Oh, that is such a Detroit pick.
It is.
I'm going to tell you, I love the way they're building that football team. I
Yeah.
love the way
And they have a great coach.
And by the way,
I
they're
love
building their
Dan
football
Campbell.
team. They're building
Dan
from a
Campbell.
quarterback standpoint. They're building the team the same way we are. They're paying a quarterback a pretty good salary as they build up the team. And eventually they'll get to a point where they'll determine whether or not Goff is worthy of being a Super Bowl quarterback when they have that Super Bowl roster, or they'll go and get their guy. They're taking a very similar approach to the Giants from that standpoint, as are a lot of other teams around the league. So for everybody that says you can't build if you pay a quarterback a good amount of money, that's false.
And the Giants and Lions both overachieved.
Yeah,
a lot this year. Nobody picked either one of these teams to be any good. The Lions were
I think the Lions
game from the playoffs. We made the playoffs.
And I'm happy for Dan Campbell. He was a Giant player years ago.
I love Dan
Got
Campbell.
to know the guy. Really a sweetheart of a guy. I think I might have told you on the show when he was hired by the Lions. I sent him a little congratulatory note. I said, I don't know if you remember me, and I mentioned how I knew him. And he wrote me a really sweet letter back. He said, of course I remember you. And he, just a short note thanking me and everything, asking how I was doing, but just a really super nice guy. I mean, he's a great quote. I mentioned the Lions beat writers are just loving having him there, but
yeah, he don't pull any punches. I mean, he tells you the way it is.
He was, when he was with the Giants, he was always so quiet. You had a real, if he knew you and he liked you, he would talk. Like he and I used to talk all the time. But wow, he's really come out of his shell now.
Yeah. No,
and good for him.
He's a good coach.
Good for him. All right, let me ask you guys this question, because I think somebody mentioned trade. If you're the Giants, would you consider trading out of 25 to maybe pick up an extra couple, extra pick, say in the second round?
It depends, I think, on if the Giants are like, well, depending on who's available at 25, and they say, well, we could get better positional value if we trade back and get an extra pick. If they have 4 guys that they're looking at and they're all on the board and they're like, one of those guys is going to fall to us.
Yeah. Do it.
Why not? I think that's why they went with Thibodeau at 5, because they said he's not going to 7, but we're going to get one of the linemen we want at 7. So let's take the defensive end now, and then we'll get the lineman at 7. I think the Giants could do that very well. If they say there's 4 guys we really like, there's a linebacker, there's a center, there's wide receiver or whatever, and we're fine with any one of those 4 guys being a Giant, we can get an extra pick, then yes, I think you could see them trade back into the second round.
Yeah. I asked Damien about that, and I said, how clustered right now would you say the grades are? and he was like kind of split. He said you could still get a good player at 25, but you don't have to reach necessarily. Like for example, he said, look, if you're the Giants and you want a cornerback, the cornerback is like 4 rounds deep, the talent. Now, if there's a run, obviously that you've got to anticipate. He does think there might be some runs here and there, but that's the beauty of it. The areas that the Giants need most help with are so deep that they don't have to force it. And they have that luxury if they want to trade down and get some additional picks, an extra second. I mean, how nice would it be if they could trade with whoever has the first pick of day 2 and get that pick?
Right.
Talk about great value, right?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Trade back, get an extra 3rd round pick, something like that.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Here's the old tag and trade Daniel Jones. Not happening. Can we forget about this, please? I see this all the time. Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback here. I just don't see him getting tagged and traded. I don't know why you
not gonna happen.
And what's your backup plan? Tyrod Taylor? I
If
know
they tag Daniel Jones,
but
if they tag Daniel Jones, it's because they're going to work out a long-term deal, or they're going to make him play under the franchise tag. They're not moving on from Daniel Jones next year.
It's not happening.
It's not
right.
happening.
No, it's not. He's going to be here, folks.
The New York Giants last
Jones
year.
Haters, I'm sorry. Got to get used to it. That's just how it's going to be.
We all talk about we all talk about how Dable and Shane built this great winning culture last year. How they it's the locker room just feels so much different. The players are buying in. You're not going to smack them in the face by letting Daniel Jones walk out the door to start Tyrod Taylor, or to start Marcus Mariota, or to start Brissett. It's not happening. Daniel Jones is coming back. You're not destroying everything that you built last year. It's not happening.
Exactly. And I don't know why people just get hung up on that. I mean, come on. Lele wants to know what happens to Darius Slayton. Will he be retained? My guess is no. This is a weak wide receiver class for free agency. I would not be surprised if Slayton gets an offer worth more than what he probably is. Slayton also had problems with the dropsies. I go back to training camp. A lot of people ask me, why did he get buried? Why was everybody looking to get rid of him? He had problems with dropsies. So
I'd be open to Slayton.
I like Slayton. Would I be upset if he came back? No, I wouldn't. I thought he was a professional and I admired how he handled himself, but I don't think he's back. I'd be surprised.
If his market is less than I think it's going to be, I welcome him back.
Yeah, I think if it's less, but Colin Johnson didn't get hurt, I don't know if Slayton's even on the team.
I don't want him back because I think his market's going to be too high. But if you get him for $3 or $4 million, yeah, he's got Kevin Jones. He's familiar with the offense. But if he's going to get 8 or 9 or more, which I think he could get with a very slim wide receiver market, again, like I said about Julian Love, I'll take the comp pick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, like Shane said, you'd like to have everybody back because you had something special last year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how many times did we all complain about how this roster was lacking in certain areas? And if it was lacking, you can't have everybody back. So it's kind of a contradiction, I think.
It's true.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong.
I mean, you bring everybody back, you run it back with the same team, you have the same problems. You're going to get out-talented by the Eagles, by the Cowboys, by the Niners. You're going to get out-talented by better teams. Sure, you'll be good enough to get to where you were. And we had a lot of things go right to get there, too. If things go the other way, if we have a couple breaks go against us, we might win 6 games. Yeah. So you can't run this was not a Super Bowl roster. It was a fun season, and I loved them being in the playoffs, and there's definitely some pieces to build with. There's no doubt about it. There's a good core of players here. But, again, that's not a Super Bowl roster. So you have to make improvements. So you can't bring everybody back. That is what the draft is for. You have to replace some players. That's why you draft new players. You're going to have to let some go. You bring more in cheaper, and you hope that they're better.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting question here from Gavin Graber. Would you take an edge at 25 if one falls? Now, to recap the edge situation, Zimenez is a UFA, Jihad Ward is a UFA, Ellerson Smith, again, was injured 2 years in a row now. So really, you just have Thibodeau and Ojulari, who dealt with injuries, obviously. Edge could be a position that I could see them adding to.
I'll go back to what Bad Dog said. I think we're both projecting cornerbacks because or at least I am, and you're too. And it's because we think that's going to be the best player available with that pick. But if they feel the edge is the best player on the board, you take the edge. Right. The Giants are not in a position to just ignore positions because they need another position a bit more than no. They have to get good football players on this team. Mm-hmm. So if the edge is by, the best player on your board, picking at 25, you take the edge. The Giants are going to take the best player on their board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if one would fall to them, that would represent good value, but they do need, in my opinion, they need edge help. Now, I do think they will bring back Jihad Ward. He's a decent number 3, but, could they maybe get a little bit better? What's going to happen with Ellerson Smith is really, to me, a concern because he missed the 2019 season because of COVID, or was it the 2020? What year was he drafted? 21? 2021 he was drafted. So he missed the 2020 season because of COVID. All right, because his football program was canceled. Then he missed most of his rookie campaign with an injury. He missed most of his second campaign with an injury. This kid hasn't played a whole lot of football lately. I'd be, at this point, I'm like, I don't know, man. I might look to move on at this point. I don't know.
I don't know what he is.
A good chance, but he's done nothing since he's been here. So, and to my knowledge, he's not. I don't know this. I don't think he's a great special teams contributor. So, like a guy like Cam Brown sticks around because of how good he is on specials, right? So, We'll see. I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's not back with the Giants next year at all.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question about a tight end. Amazing guy asked, would you draft Michael Meyer at 25, or is he too similar to Ingram? You know what?
I don't think he's similar to Ingram at all, actually, as a prospect.
Well, let me just say something. Even if he were similar to Ingram was never used correctly, in my opinion,
No,
when
he was not.
here.
No, he was not.
So I think this coaching staff, if they had Ingram, they might have used him a lot differently than past staff. So that doesn't bother me if there's a tight end in the group that is similar to Evan Ingram, because Evan Ingram has good skills. And I mean, I know we all couldn't wait to get rid of him, but he's not a bad player.
He just couldn't catch the ball. That was his hang-up. He had great skills.
Right.
He was a complete mismatch, and you saw that in Jacksonville. The only difference between him here and him in Jacksonville was he completed the catch. He completed the play. But Ingram had a lot of – some guys just can't play in New York or the New York market. It's just – some guys don't have it. You go hide yourself in Jacksonville, there's not as much pressure, and you succeed. I mean, it happens to – I think more so with baseball, it seems. Like if you're a Yankee, I mean, there's ultimate pressure on you to perform as a Yankee. So that comes with a whole new set of problems. But I think it's the media. The media is harsh here.
Yes.
They will grill you. They will ask you questions. And the fan base is harsh too. They want production out of their players. So this day and age of social media, man, you don't perform or you have 8 interceptions go off your hands or you drop 12%, 15% of your passes, you're going to hear it from New York. The media, the fans, you're going to hear it from everybody. You go to Jacksonville, well, obviously the pressure is not the same in Jacksonville, so you can just kind of concentrate on catching the ball. It's not so much in your head. And I think when you fumble or when you drop pass, I think that becomes, oh, God, don't drop it again. And ultimately, that's what happens. I think that's the problem with Slayton is I think that's in his head. I think when Tiki had the fumbling problem, it was in his head. Don't fumble again. Whatever you do, don't fumble again. So you're concentrating more on catching the pass than anything else.
Than doing
and inevitably you end up dropping it anyway.
And here's my quick answer to Amazing Guy. And the other person, I don't remember who it was, who brought up the running back earlier as a potential pick at 25. Look at the Giants' first 5 picks last year. And we heard Joe Shane when he came in, positional value. That's what I'm going to – we took a tackle. We took an edge. We took a wide receiver. We took a cornerback. And we took a guard with our first 5 picks.
And then a tight end.
Positional value. He's not taking a tight end at 25, and he's not taking a running back at 25. He's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, we just drafted a tight end last year, so it'd be.
He's going to go corner, wide receiver, and that's where he's going. I mean, maybe he goes interior offensive line, but he's going corner, wide receiver.
I think so too. All right, Danny Thomas asks, would you, I guess, sign Ben Powers from Baltimore? I'll tell you what, he's a pretty good guard, but I don't know that they're going to go that direction. I think they want to build that offensive line, get everybody, as many guys as they can on the rookie deals. So I would love Ben Powers. I mean, we did a feature on him over on Giants Country, but I don't think they're going to go for him. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't see it. I just don't. I do?
Chris D just mentioned too, to go back to the tight end real quick, that they re-signed Cager. So I don't see.
I think they could draft a tight end, but just not early.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they like Cager. He's a converted receiver.
He also brought back that Traina postseason.
Yeah.
Big athletic kid. So.
Yeah. So tight end. I don't know. Maybe they get somebody, and they put him on the practice squad, but you could do that as an undrafted free agent or something like that. Right. All right. Let's see. I know Dog's got to go in a few minutes. So let me see. Do we have any other questions? If not, all right. I don't see any other questions popping up here, but all right. So let me just real quick, guys, I'll ask you about the combine next week. What are you most interested to hear or see come out of the combine next week?
I'm excited to see the overreactions because that's what I'm excited to see. Listen, like I already know what's going to happen. Anthony Richardson in his underwear is going to go out there and he's going to throw a 75-yard ball just like Malik
without coverage and
without
perfect
coverage,
weather
in a dome. And everybody on Twitter is gonna go bananas. He's the next Joe Montana. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see the overreactions from fans because it happens every year. Last year, Malik Willis had people convinced that he should be the first overall pick.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
but I always get excited to see the big guys too. I like to see the offensive linemen go side to side, the 3-yard. I like to see the big guys. Bad Dog knows this, but yeah, it's just fun. You watch the 40 times, you watch the quarterbacks run their drills. It doesn't mean much, but it's for football. It's for passionate football fans that just want to keep football in their life, even during the offseason. That's basically what the combine is.
The most overrated thing in the combine to me is my favorite thing to watch, and that's the 40. I like seeing how fast these guys, because I am just enamored with how fast human beings can move. It means absolutely nothing. Like, they're running in their underwear. They're running in perfect weather. It's straight line ahead. There's no obstacle. There's no route. It has nothing to do with anything. The only thing that has to do is if you get by the cornerback and you get ahead of the field, then your 40 time matters. Other than that, it's about route running in your hands. Who cares how fast you run? John Ross was drafted 9th overall because he ran a 4.22 40. What the hell did he ever do in the NFL? Nothing. Darius Hayward. I can go back to a ton of running or wide receivers that ran the 40 faster than anybody you've ever seen. It didn't make him a good wide receiver, but that is fun to watch for me because, again, I just like, and I not just the receivers. I like watching the huge guys. These guys are 350 pounds. They're running sub 540s. It's like, how the hell does a guy that big move that fast? And then I like watching the quarterbacks run like 5'4". I'm like, damn, he's slow. Like, I could outrun that guy still.
I had to dig this up, but on Giants Country last year, we did a series of what drills matters most when it comes to the combine. I'll dig that up and I'll
the 3-cone shuttle, they say, is always a big
one.
There are some drills that you can tell certain things, but yeah, I mean, I know when I go to the combine, I get the opportunity to watch some of the drills. I don't take it because, I
don't think Shane's going to either. Look at the players we drafted last year. None of them had Bellinger,
Mondale. Mondale wasn't a 4.3
and the other thing that's overrated at this point is who's got formal meetings versus who's got informal meetings. Who's coming in for a visit? That's what I want to know.
Like Chris said, it's fun to watch for.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch, but the focus is going to be on free agency. I'm telling you, everybody's going to be down in that section. That I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Indianapolis Convention Center. That place is huge. That's like several city blocks. And there's a section that the agents, it's right actually below where the media work center is. You go downstairs and you see reporters swarming all over the place. And as soon as they come out for a break for their, from their seminar or whatever it is they have there, oh my gosh.
You're gonna be there?
Hopefully. I'm waiting to find out if I got one of the remaining credentials yet, but I put in. So
that's awesome. Cool. One of these years I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna go to the combine. One of these years.
We could probably go too. We could probably get you a credential too.
I'm in. Next year, I'm in. You let me know. You get me the credential, I'm in. I'll go there and watch men in underwear with you. 400-pound men.
I don't really watch men in underwear. But I'll tell you though, otherwise, if I'm being honest with you, the days can be kind of long and boring. Because,
I'm sure they are.
Just to give you an idea behind the scenes, and a dog, I know you got to go shortly. So you get up, you're there for the media interviews start, I think, at 8:30 with the players, and so you're there for 8:30, and you go down for whoever it is you're going to talk to, and then you do it, you come back up, and if you got transcription duty, which I always seem to get, which I don't care, I've got ways to transcribe fast. So you turn in your transcription, and then otherwise you're sitting there and you're writing. But they have TVs up, and then if you actually want to go into the stadium to watch certain drills, you can sign up. If you remember Pro Football Writers, they'll actually take you into the stadium to watch that, or you can watch it on TV. It's up to you. So, and in essence, somebody, it's funny, last time I went, somebody was like, why did I bother coming? I could have watched all this on TV. I said, yeah, but you couldn't talk to guys in person. But even that, they've kind of made a lot easier for, people who don't go. So that's what if I went, that's what I'd want to do. Have an opportunity to hopefully ask some questions to them. But it's a zoo, man. It's a zoo. I mean, especially with the popular picks, those things are really, really
I'm sure.
They're like 3, 4, but and then a lot of people are like, oh, did you meet with the Steelers? Did you meet with the Giants? And again, it doesn't matter. You know, yes, the Giants are going to meet with as many guys as they can. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to draft those guys.
Right. If they meet with CJ Stroud, it doesn't mean anything.
Oh, if that happens, everybody's going to be like,
if they meet with CJ Stroud,
okay, yeah, they meet with CJ Stroud, and Daniel Jones is gone.
If they meet with CJ Stroud, they're asking him about Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're not.
Right.
They're asking him about his wide receivers. They're not drafting CJ Stroud.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And we talked about that before. So, just because somebody's talking, they could also be looking at other players. I mean, there's just so much that goes on. And, really, if you're just going and you want to write a story about your local, maybe there's a guy from New Jersey I want to write a story about, so it's different. It depends on what you're going there to accomplish. But like I said at the top of the show, this is all going to be about free agency and where they are. Joe Shane's speaking Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. So if you want to be on Twitter around 1:30 p.m., unless that changes. If it changes, I'll let you know. And just follow what is being said. So that should be pretty interesting. I'm sure he's not going to say anything because there probably isn't anything to say at this point, but we will see.
Oh, he's going to talk about Daniel Jones's contract because he's going to be signed by then.
Hopefully,
I'm talking it into existence. I want Daniel Jones to be done with before the combine.
I think
the Giants do too.
From your lips, man. From your lips. Let's hope it happens.
Let's go.
Absolutely. All right. Dog's got to get out of here, everybody. And so do we. So thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Giants Live. We hope you enjoyed the show. Tomorrow, again, on Locked On Giants, I have Damian Parson, who is a Locked On NFL. Please check that show out. It was so good. It really was. I'm so excited about it. I hope you guys will check it out. And next week, Combine. So hope you will be back with us as we cover all that stuff. And hopefully, as Chris said, we'll be talking about Daniel Jones's contract. If we need to, we'll do an emergency Locked On Giants Live, right?
Yeah,
5 years, 185. I just said it. It's done.
All right. It's done.
I just heard it from Daniel. It's done.
There you go.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow on the Locked On Giants podcast. Otherwise, we'll have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.